Hey, welcome to Cheaper Jeeper TV. I'm Dino, your host. Glad to see you here. Last week you saw me do an unboxing video of products that were sent to me by Nilight. You saw me unbox a 7-pin wiring harness, LED running lights, and LED tail lights. And in this episode, I'm going to show you how I connected them all to my trailer. Now, full disclosure, I'm not a mechanic, an electrician, a technician of any sorts. I'm just a regular guy who looked up how to do these things on online forums and YouTube videos, and I'm just sharing them with you for discussion and entertainment purposes. For any matters pertaining to your vehicle or trailer, mechanical or electrical, seek the advice of a qualified professional. Having said that, let's get to it. Hey, it's so good to see you here. In this episode, I'm pretty excited because I'm going to connect the 7-pin wiring harness with distribution box. I'm going to connect the LED running lights and the LED tail lights. I'm going to explain to you a little bit about the wiring of this old trailer. I'll discuss a little bit about standards or lack of when it comes to wiring, and I'll just go through all the steps that I followed when I decided to hook everything up to my trailer. So let's get started. We'll first start by looking where the old wire harness came into the trailer from underneath, just next to the frame. It's just epoxied in inside, but just on the outside it doesn't look too great. On the floor next to the fridge under the bunkie is our area of interest, so let's have a look. I'll highlight the area on the floor where the cable comes in, and then it comes through the hole and extends to the right just about 3 inches. I'll unwrap the tape to show you the 7 different wires that are coming out of the harness that extend into the trailer and connect to morettes to similar colored wires that go elsewhere into the trailer. Not all trailers and 7-pin wiring harnesses follow the same standard, and as luck would have it, the Nilight 7-pin wiring harness colored wires match perfectly with the colored wires for my 1977 Trillium 4500. Here's a brief explanation about the lights and the wires. We have our trailer here where we're going to have running lights as well as tail lights. Careful examination on the inside of the trailer reveals that there is a green wire that powers all of the running lights, and that matches with the green powered wire for running lights in the 7-pin wiring harness. And a white wire goes to each of the lights as well to complete the circuit and is identified as the ground. You'll notice a red wire for the left turn and stop light, which will tap into the ground at that location. And similarly, a brown wire going to the right turn signal and stop light, which also taps into the ground at that location. And this is what you would have with a 4-pin wiring harness to give you lighting for your basic utility trailer needs. Now, if you have a travel trailer or a large trailer where you need brakes, we need more functionality, and that's what we have with the 7-pin wiring harness. Let's continue and have a look. Now, the Trillium trailer does have a yellow wire that terminates at the back of the trailer, which is meant for reverse lights. Now, the trailer doesn't have some, but if I ever wanted to install them, the wiring is there. There's a blue wire that leads to the electric trailer brakes, and it's the reason why I went to install a 7-pin harness back onto this trailer, because I want to make sure I have proper working electric brakes. And then finally, there's a black auxiliary 12-volt power wire which sends 12 volts from the vehicle into the trailer, into the converter, to be distributed to the lights in the trailer. It can also be used to charge a battery. So knowing the purpose and the meaning of these different colored wires, and that our Nilight 7-pin wiring harness colors match, it'll make for a very easy installation. So the first thing we'll do is install the new wiring harness, and then we're going to make some pigtails to carry the colors from the distribution box to the marked connectors in the trailer. As I look at the 7-pin wiring harness, I'm not confident that it's long enough to be able to go into the same hole bottom of the trailer as the original cable, so I've chosen to install it through the front wall of the trailer using this waterproof cable gland that you can see here. After making the pilot hole, I continued drilling from the outside to make the hole large enough to hold the cable gland. Now I didn't have a 1-inch bit, so I used my Dremel tool to help make the hole a little bigger, and it seemed to work out fine. I made sure to install O-rings on the outside and the inside to help make it weatherproof, and then using an adjustable wrench on the inside and the outside, the cable gland is tightened against the hull of the trailer. Our next step is to remove the distribution box from the 7-pin wiring harness in order to get the cable through the cable gland. After removing the cover, the next step is to remove the plastic clamp that holds the cable in place. And with that done, a 10mm socket is all that's required to remove the nuts so that you can remove the color-coded wires. Making sure to slip the sealing nut over the cable, you can begin to insert the wires one by one so that the whole cable is inserted, and then use the cable gland to seal it up nicely. And once inside, you could use your 10mm socket to tighten down those loop connectors on the color-coded posts. And of course, we'll reinstall the clamp to hold the cable in place. Well, that seemed pretty easy. We now have a 7-pin wiring harness installed on the trailer with a distribution box inside, pinned down to the floor with some self-tapping screws. It's now time to make the pigtails to join to the rest of the wiring in the trailer. I decided to use terminal loop connectors similar to the ones that came with the distribution box from which to make the pigtails. I'll clamp them in place, and then I'll use some shrink wrap tubing to help secure the connection. I used the 7 wires from the original harness to make the pigtails. I did it for each color and then installed them in the distribution box. And here you see the pigtails connected to the existing wiring. I may change out the existing wiring later, but for now they're connected to the existing wiring, and now it's time to install the running lights and the tail lights. The original running lights are in various states of disrepair, so it's time to remove them. And it's simply a matter of cutting around the caulking with an X-Acto knife and then removing the plastic lens simply by just pulling it off. And then using a drill bit, drill out the rivets that are holding the lights in place, and then pull it away from the trailer and use a cutting tool to cut the wires. And once all the exterior lights are removed, clean the surface. I use Barkeeper's Friend and a paper towel to prepare the surface for sealing up all those holes. I use the Dremel tool to apply a bevel to all the holes so that the body filler that I use will have a nice surface in which to bond. Using the same body filler that I used in the belly band video, I began to go around the trailer filling up all the holes. I know, I could have done it a little neater. So now that all the holes have been sealed, it's time to install the new running lights, and using the base plate as a template, I used the holes to draw some markings of where I'm going to drill into the trailer so I can secure these running lights. In the central oval area, I drilled a hole for the positive wire and the ground. It looks like everything's lining up nicely, so it's time to secure the base plate. I put a strip of butyl tape on the base, and then I put it in place, and I put 2 screws through the plate into a piece of plywood that's on the other side of the fiberglass. I then feed the wires of the running light through the butyl tape and the pre-drilled holes in the plywood, and then press one end of the running light against the edge of the base and then forcibly push in the other. And then simply repeat the procedure for the other 3 running lights. I chose to mount the 2 tail lights on the outer extremes of the tail light area. There are 2 screw-in bolts that attach to the back of the tail light from which you secure it to the trailer. I used the license plate bracket as a template for the holes. I do the same for the other side. Then it's time to start drilling and also measuring where I'll drill a hole to feed the wires into the trailer. And don't forget, on this side, this light has a light that faces downward towards the license plate. And once the 3 wires and 2 bolts are fed through the holes, you just secure the tail light with the 2 locking nuts provided for each light. And then you're done installing the lights, and all you have to do is apply caulking up both sides and across the top. You do not put caulking along the bottom of the light so that if there's any moisture that happens to get behind, the moisture has a way to get out. So it looks pretty good right now, and now it's time to talk about how you do your connections inside so that these lights will work. First, let me show you how I connect the running lights. You can see here the green wire is already connected to the positive wire of this running light. So now what I'm doing is taking the ground wire and putting a butt connector on it. Now using a crimping tool, I'll now crimp the butt connector so that it has a firm physical grip on the wire, and it's very hard to make it come out. So now I'll work with the running light negative wire, and you'll see I have a heat shrink tube already on the wire, and I'll take the end of the negative wire and put it in the butt connector and use the crimping tool to secure it to that. Once both ends are secured from the crimping tool, I'll slide the heat shrink tube over the butt connector and then use a lighter to help shrink that tube, which will just give that connection a little extra security. And that's how you do the wiring on each of the running lights. The trailer's green running light wire will attach to the running light's positive red wire, and the trailer's white ground wire will attach to the running light's black negative wire. I'm going to use this diagram to help explain the wiring at the rear of the trailer. This is the rear looking from the top, and you see the running lights positive and negative wires. The tail lights have positive and negative wires, but they also have the left turn and right turn signal wires. But it's important to note that the rear tail lights don't follow the same standard or convention for the colors of the wires. So I'll just map it out for you in this diagram. The green trailer's running light wire goes to the positive of the running lights, as well as the brown positive wire coming from the tail lights. Then your white ground wire attaches to the black negative wires of the running lights and the white negative wires of the tail lights. The trailer's red left turn wire will join the yellow left turn wire of the driver's side tail light. And then finally, the trailer's brown right turn wire will join the green positive right turn wire of the tail light. And now here's the actual wiring from the driver's side tail light, and then here's the actual wiring from the passenger side tail light. Aren't you glad I used the diagrams to explain this instead? Well, it took a little bit of figuring, but I managed to get it done, and I am stoked with the results. I have nice bright running lights and tail lights to make for some safe towing ahead. Well, I'm pretty stoked with how that came out, and here's a little tip. Now for some cheaper Jeeper tips. First tip I'd like to share is to invite a friend over to help with the job. In fact, my friend Rick came and helped me out and brought along these tools. which were incredibly helpful. A wire stripper, a crimper, wire cutters just helped the job go so much smoother, as well as having Rick's assistance was also a big help. So thank you very much, Rick. Another tip is when you have the distribution box for your 7-pin wiring harness, leave the bolts holding down the ring connectors that are already in the box, and then attach your new ring connectors on top and have an extra set of bolts to just secure them down. That way it'll be a lot easier. I'll have a link in the description section of all the materials that I used in this video in case you were interested in doing something like this yourself. So I'm sure that some of you have some suggestions that you'd like to make. By all means, please feel free to put them in the comment section below, because I'm sure they'll be very informative for myself and the other viewers. Hey, that's it for this week's episode of Cheaper Jeeper TV. I hope that you found it interesting, and if you did, how about giving this video a thumbs up? And if you're new to the channel, feel free to hit the subscribe button and the alert bell so you'll be notified when the next video is released. Until then, I'm Dino for Cheaper Jeeper TV. Be well, stay safe, take care.